Welcome, kayak anglers. You are tuning into the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network, kayak fishing's best network of shows with great hosts covering all things kayak fishing, bringing you special guests covering topics such as shore fishing, river trips, gear reviews, angler profiles, tournament news, and more. Sit back, relax. Let's do this.
What is going on, everybody? I'm your host, Adam Pross, and I welcome you to another episode of the River Run Podcast. And this is going to probably be the last one of the 2025 year, the second season of the River Run Podcast. And I thought, you know what? It's Christmas time, and I have a gift for all of you. And I'm going to tell you what that gift is. But until we get there, just a couple of things here, okay? I did want to say, I hope all of you have had an amazing holiday with your family, your loved ones, everybody. I hope you're all out there who are all out there still fishing, are catching big ones. You're out there doing this whole winter fishing game. If you're not doing winter fishing, like me, I hope you're doing other things. You know, you might be doing some tackle crafting, whatnot. The River Run Podcast, you know, I just want to give a quick little shout out to everybody from the Kayak Adventure Series, Jackson Kayaks, Paddle and Fin, Yak Attack, Dubro Fishing, Hard Knocks Kayak Fishing in Southern Ontario. I just want to say thank you very much for everything you guys bring and the support. And I look forward to season 3 coming out in 2026. But before we jump into the third season, we need to get to the end of the second season, right? The second season, my guest tonight, this is my gift to everybody out there. It is honestly, it's like a Christmas gift for me to have. Not only is he a smallmouth legend to me, he's I'll just say his name, Travis Myers. He is one of the smallmouth gods, as I like to call him. He is a guru for river fishing. Tonight's topic we're going to chat with him about is winter smallmouth fishing. This is cold water. This is completely up his jam. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my dear friend and also icon in the river smallmouth world, Travis Myers. You've probably read many of his In-Fisherman articles regarding the Midwest Finesse. You know, he's done lots with different brands that he represents. So Travis, welcome to the show.
I just hope I can live up to that fantastic intro, sir. Well, thanks for having me.
Hey, anytime. You know, and I think, you know, through our discussions, you know, over the years, and I just wanted to say that, you know, I've been, you know, I think this is going to be like a fantastic way to kind of send season 2 out. And at the same time, you know, you and I have been talking about doing this for a while, and we've sat down on podcasts before together. And I'll bring it back to the first one. And I like I say, you know, if you have a notepad and pen, this would be the episode to definitely have it out, because Travis is just this. You have really conquered the logistics side, you've gone and you've done the adventure side, you've done the mapping, you really understand through your years of experience on the river fishing, and you were just another one of the diehards for river smallmouth.
Yeah, no doubt. And thanks again for having me, my friend. I know we've been trying to work on this for a while,
Yes,
and
we have.
I grew up on the water. I've lived on the water my whole adult life, whether it was in New York on that Susky feeder, or I lived on the upper Allegheny for about 4 years. And now I'm in the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia, and we've been here coming up on 19, almost 20 years now. Man, and today's my birthday, and it really doesn't feel like it's been that long, but it has. And I've been addicted to moving water my whole life, and I always will be. As long as I can keep going, and the water's still flowing, I love it. I'm ate up with it. Always will be.
I think that's where a lot of listeners and just the people who have taken time to read your In-Fisherman Midwest Finesse logs and whatnot. You can tell, and just through listening to you on other podcasts. I remember listening to one with you and Travis Manson, Smallmouth.
Yeah.
You spoke about I believe it was bait marinating and whatnot. And even on the Catch podcast with Brad Hicks and Matt Souders, you spoke there too. But no, like you've spent like you said, your life, working, moving water, and that drive for smallmouth. Like why small? Like I've always wanted to ask you this: why smallmouth? Like why not all the other? There's lots of other fish you could go catch in the river, isn't there? But why smallmouth?
I grew up fishing a lot of really large walleye and muskie in rivers, and it was more common for me to get a 6, 7, 8 pound walleye, and up to, I've got one over here on the wall that's 12 and a half. It was more common for me to catch large muskie and walleye just on the system that I grew up on, that Susky feeder, than it was smallmouth. And smallmouth were a treat. I mean, they were an absolute treat. I don't think a lot of them made it very long with the 45 and 50, almost 50-inch muskies and stuff that are up there in upstate New York. But there was something about them that I could marry the light tackle approach that I love to do for big brown trout and steelhead, but still be bass fishing. And my jam is light tackle finesse. That's my thing. And I won't say that's all I do, but the cold water season, that's what I'm doing. And to answer your question, I think I caught my first smallmouth on a jitterbug when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and they always held a special place in my heart. And I've just been addicted to the smallmouth thing more than any other species for whatever reason. I think a lot of it now, given where we live, and we didn't end up here by accident. I mean, believe me, that we needed to have some good smallmouth fishing nearby, and we certainly do. But it's where they live. I get a great amount of solitude stepping into that water, much like I did when I would winter steelhead fish when I was a kid. And right out back here, we're right on the water and everything. And I just, that's my escape from my day work. And thankfully, I'm married to a really understanding woman that gets that I fish, and thankfully she loves it too. And that's something that we every year we look forward to, partaking in together. That's together time for us, is on the water, and it always will be. Thankfully, I got really lucky.
Well, and it goes to say that, like, at the end of it, if you're gonna do something you enjoy, spend it with people you enjoy doing it with, right? So,
Yeah,
I think that's really important, and I think that's really really unique in its own way, Um, but for years, at the same time, you wrote these In-Fisherman logs for the Midwest Finesse, and
yeah,
that, and then, like, In-Fisherman guide is, that's not just, a small magazine here. This is like one of the top fishing magazines, throughout Canada and the United States. And, like, that's a bit of, I have to say, that's a very prestigious honor, at the same time. And your logs have been, yeah, I remember going over them, and it's incredible. Like, just listing it off from, whether it from presentation to how the day was flowing out to what was going on. Like, you've really taken it all, and then you have this opportunity. What was that like?
it was a tremendous honor, and getting to know Ned Cady, and I call him a close friend. Still to this day, we exchange emails, and he gave me a tremendous opportunity to be able to write many finesse articles on that Midwest Finesse site. And I think there was a niche there at the height of the Ned rig craze, where I was one of the few river smallmouth fishermen that adopted it very early. And was doing it before the boom hit on the big stuff. And there's a lot of river smallmouth anglers that probably have 15 or 20 years on me that were fishing, marabou jigs, and they were fishing, yum dingers and stuff on ball heads and everything. But that really wasn't the same as what came about with what I wrote about in regards to drop rate and the scenting systems and the undulation, and it was just different. And it really opened my eyes, along with an article that Matt Straw wrote in 2012, and an In-Fisherman Bass Guide. They've been my guiding light for what I do for the last, coming up on a decade and a half now. It changed my fishing. Elephants eat peanuts, in the smallmouth world. And I think we're seeing that a lot with the downsizing of, ICAST unveilings. We're seeing bait companies go down to, 2-inch offerings and stuff like that. And, guys on the Great Lakes are taking 5, 6, 7 pound smallmouth on this stuff. And, it's not always about a chatterbait on our rivers here in Virginia, Maryland, and West Virginia. To think that behemoths like that could be susceptible to such small baits on the Great Lakes. Well, what do you think they could do with a cast wide river? And I can honestly say that all of my big fish over the last 2 decades have come on some form of finesse. Now, one would argue that that's what I throw the most. Well, I can also tell you that before they were available here, I was throwing glide baits a lot. I threw Gancraft glide baits before they were available in the U.S., and they were the first ones over here. And I didn't take as many big fish as I do finesse fishing. And I still don't. Finesse is my deal. It always will be. And again, it gets back to my youth, with the steelhead and the trout game. Trout fishermen will throw a size 18 dry fly and, take 10, 12, 15 pound browns and stuff and rainbows and bass fishermen and everything. It's just whatever. It's that mental hurdle that, a 5 pound river bass won't take something that's 2 inches long, which is nonsense.
Do you think that, like, if you go back to like your early, like we're talking your earlier days here, as this whole finesse game, let's call it, like you were doing finesse before probably the word finesse came into fishing.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I'm taking this, is that, and then like the idea, and maybe similar to even like somebody like Ned Cady, is that he's been kind of doing this whole Ned rig thing.
Right.
He's been, and long before, lo and behold, and the world's just like, yeah, this is finesse, and it's like, well, actually, I've kind of been doing this the whole time, but now you're starting, like you said, 2025, we're now starting to see bait companies, like you said, come out with these much more smaller presentations, and you're also starting to see a bit more of a JDM presence in here. Long and behold, being that before, when you were most likely having to go on to a website and find these baits and then order, ship, across the pond it goes, you're starting to see other companies, North American brands, that are having more of a JDM touch or influence to their bait making presentation now.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's spot on. I was importing JDM stuff here before. I would say, heck, there was probably 3 guys I knew. We were importing that stuff, and I mean, perfect example, the Jackal crosstail shad. I mean, which is now discontinued. I used that thing for years before it was ever even available here, and phenomenal bait. You couldn't go on Ichiban, or you couldn't get up, go on the hook up tackle and find it, or Japan import stuff. And I saw pretty early on that there was a difference with finesse fishing in Japan compared to what we call finesse here. One of my guiding lights very early on, and my mentor turned me on to this, was the Charlie Brewer Slider book. And every winter to this day, I read that book. And it's a very simple system. But if you look at it from drop rate to covering 3 zones of water with lead and plastic, it's masterful. Now, one would say that, the Charlie Brewer Slider Company, they offer a worm and they offer a grub. Well, that's true. But if you can cover those 3 zones doing that and fishing slower than what you think slow is, that's finesse. And it's different than what a lot of anglers feel finesse is. it's a different style, and you're right. I have been doing it for. I've been on moving water for over 40 years. I would say the finesse deal really kicked in with me with my mentor. When I thought that I knew what I was doing, my mentor taught me that I needed to even downsize some more and slow down more. And
Wild.
And my mentor was labeled by Gord Pizer at In-Fisherman as the best smallmouth fisherman, and no one ever knew. And he taught me a lot because I left my ego at the door and I listened to him, and we had a lot in common. You know, he was about 30 years older than me, but he was a Vietnam vet. He was a Marine, curmudgeon-y type. He didn't really take to a lot of people. But he was also on the board of directors at La Reserve Boasting up there.
Oh, wow.
And he knew, and he taught me a great deal. And this is, you know, long before Ned Cady latched on, kind of took me under his wing and latched on to me. And unfortunately, my mentor passed away about a year and a half ago now. And Dick Bengraff out of upstate New York, he was going to Quebec and going to Athabasca and fishing Lakers before they even had lodges there. And he was my smallmouth mentor. I did write about him in the In-Fisherman once as kind of an homage as to how he taught me. And he always told me to throw it where they live and throw what they always eat. And that always stuck with me.
That's such a great quote. I like that.
And I think on his gravestone, it should probably one of his biggest quotes he put out there on his gravestone. It should be etched in there. And he said, "An ounce of biology is worth a ton of tackle." And his ounce of biology was understanding smallmouth. He didn't fish expensive equipment. He fished good equipment, but by no means high-end stuff, because he always told me that he would never take a Rolex to the field. He would take a Timex. And so he would never bring something, you know, fishing with him that was like a Rolex watch. He wanted stuff that he could beat, you know, the bejesus out of, and was serviceable. You know? Line and hooks were his deal. High quality line and high quality hooks. He was a master, and I would really like to see Gord Pizer do an article on him. Just phenomenal. And I was very, very lucky to only be about 2.5 hours from him when I lived in New York.
That's it's those people that you come across in life, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
they say surround yourself with, you know, greatness, and surround yourself with those who are also, you know, who inspire, you know, because they probably all sat where you were sitting, where I am sitting, you know what I mean? And I think that influence there, and you know, and it is interesting because in the realm of fishing, when you talk to some guys, you know, it seems to be all about tackle. Other guys, it's all about rods or reels, you know, or it's about line and hook, you know. And I really find that fascinating, listening to each and every one, and none is wrong or none are right. You know what I mean? Like they're doing what works for them, you know. And I think that's what's cool, because at the end of the day, sometimes you just got to go. You're going out there. We're all out there for the same reason. How you catch, you know, how you pull, you know. At the end of it, this the fish that we're all chasing, and it's so true. There's some that are very, it's technique orientated, and that's fine. But when you begin to actually understand the biology of the fish and the ecosystem that it lives in,
Yeah.
you gain so much more. And you also taught me one thing, and I will say this, is that, we know about the owl, but we need to know what the mouse is up to. And I've never forgotten that, ever. Just like the elephant, elephant eat peanuts. I have never forgotten about, focusing. There's the owl, but we need to focus on the mouse, because we got to understand why the owl chases the mouse, and what does the mouse
Yeah.
do, And like I said, I'll never forget that. That has always been embedded in, since that day. I've always taken a new approach in the way that I've really looked into river smallmouth. And I think this is a great way to like kind of get into what we're gonna chat about is, winter smallmouth fishing. I am very much so a rookie when it comes to, and to be fair, my season up here and has closed. But for you, this is your cold water game. This is your jam. You know what I mean? This is where, some people wait for the height of the summer, the spawn, the post spawn, the fall, whatnot. Cold water season is where Travis Myers, is gonna shed the light and teach us something tonight. We're gonna call him Professor Travis at this point because he truly is. But so why? Why the wintertime? Like, why winter fishing? What draws you to get out there?
I think probably the biggest thing is there are so many fish consolidated in such small areas. And if I wanted to hunt a trophy, name the species, would I go to Yosemite or would I do it on a small island in the Pacific? And that's kind of how I view the cold water period, where I'm not dealing with the entire river. I'm not dealing with nomads. I'm dealing with fish that are set up and hunkered down. And I'm just greatly increasing my odds of not only numbers, it is a slower bite, of course, but it doesn't necessarily have to be 2 or 3 fish a day. Once locationally you understand what you're doing. And of course, there's the solitude. And like you and I've talked, Adam, I don't fish in high pressure areas, but I can tell you if I did, I would probably be even more addicted to the cold water period because I wouldn't see anyone else on the water.
Yeah.
I don't have that problem in the waters that I fish. I very rarely see other people. I think for me, it is because that is the best time of year for what I love doing, and that is finesse fishing. Well, I finesse fish year round. It is almost a necessity once you get, in your sub 45 degree and, sub 40 water temperatures. That's you're going to get rewarded if you know what you're doing. Of course, I push that envelope and I'm doing it in June and July and, and all this, and there is some carryover and, we'll probably end up talking about that. I do feel that if someone is astute when it comes to the cold water finesse game, that it's going to make you a better angler in the fair weather months. Most notably the dog days of summer.
Yeah, and that it can be some, once again, very tough fishing dog days of summer. But not only you have really brought this up, but Jeff Little has mentioned this numerous times in his videos. Is, you know, and even on podcasts and whatnot, he's spoken about like how, as an angler, as you evolve into the cold water months where you're out there where like the bite is slow, it can be very rewarding, but you'll see almost a new light in the idea that by the time you get into that carries over, like you're saying, into those summer months where you're once again you're dealing with, you know, those conditions now, not on the colder side, but you know, a warmer side, a flop of the, you know, your environment, but it just comes out as a, once again, more resilient angler, being able to get out there and being able to understand his or her river system and what the fish, how they're acting, how they're reacting to what is being put in front of them, and how you're searching at the same time.
There are a lot of parallels between that summer swelter period and December. I'm of firm belief that some of the biggest fish in low water in the summertime are nocturnal. And you know, when you're dealing with 90+ degree days and you get about 10 a.m. and the back of your neck starting to burn a little bit, and you're starting to get a little hot and sweaty, and you know, things really start going south from that morning topwater bite. If you've got the mental tenacity and you can tap into what you did in December, it can pay off in those swelter days, because there's a lot of parallels there with lethargic fish that are not going to move a lot. And I'm talking about someone that's evolved from floating down the river and throwing whopper ploppers for 10 hours. I will guarantee that if someone does that they're passing by a lot of fish in the summer. There's a lot of fish that they're either spooking, or there's a lot of fish that are not willing because they ate last night at midnight. They ate some 8-inch chub, and they're sitting on a shade line in a foot of water. That those fish are lethargic, and you're dealing with 70+ degree water temps. So the reason I bring that up is winter fishing made me a better summer fisherman. And both of those periods are what I look forward to. I look forward to extremely low water, gin clear in the summer, and I look forward to right now. Neither one of them are ideal for most anglers. That's not a fun time for most anglers.
That's tough.
And I guess I kind of like the reward of the toughness of those conditions, which are polar opposite in a lot of ways, but very similar in some others. So that's kind of what draws me to the winter thing, is I feel that, and Jeff touches on this quite a bit, you know, that mental acuity of staying in the game when you haven't had so much as a bite, or you don't think you have had a bite. Maybe you have. For the last 15, 20, 30 minutes or more, or hours, if you're not in the right spots. That helps with other times of the year. If you can harness that winter acuity mentally, it's going to help you. at other times of the year. I'm a firm belief on that.
And this is why, I like, this is always a interesting topic. And when you start to listen to, people who've been doing it, and, the experts are, like Professor Travis here, and Jeff would be another, we'll call him Professor Little.
Yeah. Just very good.
You two are, you're talking, on the same line right now, and
Yeah.
I think that's why too, for anybody who's listening, watching, whatever, it is a, this is where I'm not kidding. It is time to break out the notepad and pen, because or rewatch it, save it, so let's talk location here. Location. And when, what are we really looking for here? Are we looking, searching for deep holes, ledges, current break? Are we in the line of, are we searching on the side of, structure, log jams, isolated rocks, whatnot? Like, what are you generally looking for out there?
I think one of the biggest misnomers with the winter fishing is depth. I think that it's consistently put out there that, you're fishing a winter hole, you're fishing the deepest portion of, available water in whatever stretch that you're fishing. That's not always the case. Some of my best wintering holes that I've ever stumbled across are 5-6 foot deep. When maybe a mile the other way or a mile upriver might have 10 or 15 foot, but they don't produce as well as the 5, 6, 7 foot. The first thing that I want to see in a wintering hole is there food in it? Because I can tell you that some of the biggest bait fish of the year that smallmouth will take are in the cold water period, and they need to be present. Winter smallmouth, they will not feed very often, but when they do, it better be caloric dense. And it's not always about the microscopic stuff. The microscopic stuff makes it easier to fool them because there's less negative cues on human-made baits that are smaller rather than larger. But it is nothing to see 7, 8, 9 inch, juvenile carp and chubs in a smallmouth this time of year. Full-size panfish.
Wow.
I've seen more than once. I've seen smallmouth in the 21 and over class that had choked full-size panfish, and they're not doing real well. And it was always November, December. They don't see those as being untakeable like we humans do. We'd be like, what the heck are you doing, brother? But they don't see that. They see it as an easy meal. And the timing was right, and it was, heck, I'm eating right now because this thing, it's edible, or so they think. So is there bait there? Whatever that may be. And it could be various things in different parts of the country. Now in Ohio, and I watch it, I kind of listen or watch a couple guys out of the Ohio, Indiana area and stuff like that, where they might have shad-based forage, which are, pelagic, and I don't have that. My forage base here, it might be an 8-inch sucker or a chub, or a 4-inch crawdad, something along those lines late in the season. And I think some of that dictates bait choice and location, depending on what part of the country you're in. I know for a fact here in West Virginia that some of the biggest smallmouth in the perimeter around where I live, that they eat trout.
Jeez.
That us taxpayers are planting. There is a trout connection here in West Virginia, and I can tell you it's serious. Where trout grow some big smallies, and look out west to the kokanee eaters, in Dvorak, or
I was
am I not supposed to say that reservoir? But I mean, everyone knows it by now. But,
yeah, everybody knows.
It's kind of an artificial, test tube of a giant smallmouth out there with a kokanee. So, and the reason I bring all that up is like how someone may winter fish in Ohio or Indiana may be different than what we do here in the Mid-Atlantic. And a lot of that is forage based. I don't have shad, I don't have emerald shiners, things of that nature. So, a lot of my fish here differ from that. So is there bait there? You're going to know this time of year, it is the clearest water that you'll have all year. The plankton has filtrated. It is nothing for me to be able to look into 10, 12, 13 foot of water right under me. And I know what's going on. And so that kind of gets back with the owl and the mouse, to understand the owl.
I was just going to say that.
Study the mouse. And so I know where panfish winter. We have chubs here. We have fall fish here, which a lot of people don't have in other parts of the country, but they are in the Potomac River Basin. And probably if someone's a fly fisherman, they've probably saved you from getting skunked once or twice. They love flies. And we have juvenile fall fish. Our fall fish here get 21, 22, 23 inches. We have some monsters.
Yeah.
They're in the minnow family. They live in very clean water. They're a great indicator of water quality. They really are. And they winter right with the biggest smallmouth in your system. There's also a very strong connection this time of year with the panfish. The rivers that I fish are inundated with green sunfish. We all have rock bass.
Yeah.
Typically north, south, east, west, you're going to have rock bass. It is, I can tell you that rock bass get pegged by big smallmouth this time of year. I've picked a number of them out of the gullets of smallmouth, starting right in that mid-November time frame on. Wow. So to answer your question, Adam, the bait. The first thing, is there bait there? And you're going to see it. You're going to be able to recognize, what's going on with bait pods. I have massive schools of bait that'll be suspended in the column right under my kayak this time of year. And they don't have to chase them. I mean, they're suspended right there and they don't move. They really don't. I mean, they don't even care my kayak's going over them. They literally will consolidate and they're in a ball and they don't move for nothing.
That's incredible.
Which gets back to, I mean, the typical the suspending jerkbait thing that everyone does. Connection there.
There's definitely, if you're seeing it on the side, that there's bait fish suspended right there, and there is a lot of talk, when it comes to wintertime, cold water, and suspended jerkbait is like, I don't know, 90% of the what you see people usually throwing is a jerkbait, and it's a suspended jerkbait, and you listen to videos, so there's fall fish. I didn't actually realize that fall fish were an indicator of really clear water and clean water, because on the rivers that I fish, catching fall fish is pretty common. And there is lots of them, and not just little ones, impressive size, like over, I would say, like well over, I think 16. I had one that I want to say was over, almost, I would say over 20 inches long. Like it was, I didn't measure it, but it was, and it was good size, healthy fish. But I didn't realize that's the actual connection between that being is that, clear water. It's like, that's interesting.
They're a very good indicator of good water quality, so that's a good thing that you're seeing those.
So when you begin, like, we're talking about bait present, like, having, like, is there bait present, like, we're kind of going over, we understand what the owl's doing, we want us to understand what the mouse is doing. And so do you think, if you were a smallmouth and you were going to make you're going to take your energy now that you've been kind of savoring throughout the day, and you see one of these big old schools, whether it's a rock bass, whatever, if you're going to go and take out the biggest one there, because it's the biggest meal, chance you may not eat for a little bit because you're about to exert all your energy chasing this big thing down.
Just like the heat of summer.
You're going to exert all that energy to take one thing down, but that one thing is going to be, the one thing you're going to eat today. Shall it be presented right in front of you, or shall it move right past you? And if you think of a school of bait, like a bait fish, a big school of them suspended there, and they're all, kind of holding out there together, and then there's that one that just seems, and you got that moment to strike. The biggest in the pack's got to eat, and he's usually the biggest for a reason, so he's usually going to go for the biggest meal. Not taken back from what we talked about earlier, meaning that elephants eat peanuts, but like you were saying, you're finding these rather large, full-size rock bass, whatnot, and they're in the gullets of these smallmouth that are of significant size. So now let's just, I'm always interested in this, and the idea of structure, and how does structure, in the sense to now, relate into location for river smallmouth, but also not taking away from what we were just talking about what the mouse is doing, that relation to structure too for river smallmouth, and how you're tracking them down in that cold water season.
Yeah, everything, whatever bait species it is, whether it be carp, big channel cats, the bait fish species, smallmouth, they're going to winter together. And they winter together primarily because they're in the most protected water that in the course of a high water event, and it happens every year. A lot of years, I think that we're almost not going to have one, and then boom, right, 1st of March, we'll have one coming out of February. Those species want to survive. And to do that leads me into the second portion of what you want to look at for wintering smallmouth location. And that's, you've got immovable structure that is not going anywhere in the course of a high water event. On some bodies of water, I've got one river not very far from me. I've got 4 rivers around me. One is predominantly wood. I'm not a wood fan in the winter unless that wood is anchored. That root ball system is anchored or it could be wedged or in between granite, whatever the case may be. But that thing is not moving even if we quadruple the water levels. I much prefer the warming effect of big granite. It's not unusual to see fish suspended just absolute inches above like a giant boulder that's radiating heat. Very, very common where I fish to see that. You'll see 2 and 3 fish literally just inches off of a light colored large boulder that they're there for a reason. And they don't care about my kayak and I'm talking 35 to 40 degree, sometimes under 35 degree water temps. That the spook factor is gone. They don't care. They're not going to go scooting away like they do in July or August.
Yeah.
They're there saving up energy. And I think one of the lesser known things when it comes to the wintering holes is when you think that you have found one, and you are on the backside of a 3-day warming trend. And I'm talking, in just this week here in West Virginia, we're about ready to hit one where this morning it was 13 degrees when my wife and I went to work. And tomorrow we're in the mid 40s. And by the end of the week, we're in the mid 50s for about 4 days straight. Major warming trend.
Yeah.
Well, on those warming trend days, and I've never heard anyone talk about this, and it absolutely blows my mind because it's one of the most awesome things that I can honestly say I've seen in the natural world, the smallmouth in the cold water period, and they will move east and
Oh,
what
I think Travis.
where
Okay, there he is. There he is.
where you've got a wintering hole. You know that smallmouth are present in here, or
Okay.
you have your suspicions that they are. Those 3-day warming trends that heat up that weak side of the river, the shallowest portion of that, and it's even better if you have some kind of light colored sand. Those fish will move across river and get into 2 and 3 foot of water midday.
Wild.
Some of the biggest schools that I've ever seen, and I'm talking schools of 20 plus fish. I didn't even, the first time that I stumbled across this was probably 17 years ago.
Oh.
Probably, and it was the single biggest school of smallmouth I'd ever seen in my life, and they were in less than 3 foot of water.
Wild. That's like, it's
To the
very interesting.
To the right of that, literally within 15 to 20 feet to their right, they had access to 12 foot of water. It was phenomenal, and it's held up all these years. It wasn't you know, this once in a lifetime sighting. It is something that I look for now. And it holds true. And I've had 3 rods going at once with 3 smallmouth on them doing it on this pattern.
Wow.
The first time I stumbled across it, I never made a cast. I thought I was seeing things. And it went against everything that I had ever read. You know, you're talking so many years ago, and you know, people weren't wearing GoPros on their heads and all this stuff. It went against the grain of everything that I had ever read in regards to wintering river smallmouth. They're there primarily is they're being re-energized by Mother Nature.
Yeah.
With the warmer water time. But I can also tell you that's also where the bait's at. The bait does the exact same thing. Smallmouth follow it. It's phenomenal. I mean, it really is. I really am. I'm going to have a hard time not getting out at the end of the week.
It's you know, it's interesting because, you know, you talk about this idea that, like, you know, this has gone really like completely against the grain, like this. And then, you know, you're out there and you're kind of like, it's like being lost at sea, and or lost in the desert, and now you're, oh my gosh, there it is. There's the water, you know what I mean? Oh my God, there's the island out there. And it's like the same idea is that, you know, it doesn't always have to, you know, make sense right away. Sometimes that begins to make sense a little bit later, because for one, we're surprised what we're seeing. So we're actually really focused on the object that we're out there for, but we're not actually looking at what's going on around it. You know what I mean? For instance, why the bait fish were there, why the sand bottom, you know, makes sense. Just like the rocks. It's the same idea. You know, you get onto a warming trend where the sun is going to be active now for longer. The temperature has gone up. In the same idea, if you think of, you know, the full moon, in a full moon with no clouds in the sky. Well, if you really think about it, if that shines down, that's more light going on into the river system, opposed to the times where the moon is only half full, or the moon is only a quarter full, or a cloudy, this idea that, the light, and it transfers heat, which creates, when you get warm, you start moving, and what moves, the mouse moves, the owl moves, you know what I mean? Just like what would go on, most likely in the trees, and in the environment around this. So no, like that's that is really absolutely wild. Like you said, it's interesting to hear it, hear you talk about this, because like you said, you've seen it. This is the grain says it's going this way. Like, why is it going the opposite way now? I gotta ask you, when it comes to presentations in your river smallmouth arsenal for the wintertime, I would really like to dive in on that too. Like and we've spoken many times about bait selection, and all the baits that one could throw, but if you had to really narrow it down, what would it be? What, like, because the internet says, maybe you should have, oh, well, we can't leave home without that suspended jerk bait. We're not going to leave home without that. So we've kind of covered the mid there. Hair jigs, some sort of finesse jig, let's say, tube, smaller paddle tails, like a Kayak, like a 2.8, let's say. I don't know. Does that kind of jive with what we're going for here, or what would you say?
I have two baits that are bottom oriented. One that I will dead stick more, one falls slower. And I kind of gauge fish reaction off of both of them.
Fall rate.
Yeah, fall rate is huge. If there's one thing in my fishing that I could surmise in the last 20 years, it is drop rate. It is absolutely paramount.
If you, and for anybody that's really listening, if you really want to understand the drop rate of a plastic, or just the science behind this, Travis has spoken on other podcasts about this, but his science is, it's all experimenting truly with different plastics, and releasing the salts, adding, scents and whatnot, and how these plastics fall with certain lead weights. It's interesting because I remember listening to you talk about this, and I got myself into the idea that, it really is. And drop rate is actually quite interesting when you look, and it actually even more interesting how the bait presentation moves in the water as it is falling. And if you look at the way things move as they move, the way things fall, their action, how quickly something is moving, opposed to how something is slowly falling, giving that fish the opportunity to not just go, oh, that just went by, or what is that? Why is that still there? Is this thing going to move, or is it still in my presence? Giving that chance to entice that bite, I really find that interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of that, Adam, came about from like so many other anglers, green, great experience that you're having any given day and turn that into a nightmare, well, get wedged in rock about every other cast.
Yeah,
and you know, not only is it unproductive, it's frustrating. So
it is.
many years ago, when we first moved here to West Virginia, for me to stay out of rock and 3 foot of water with current involved, I really did a lot of experimentation with fall rate and how to mitigate getting wedged and being unproductive. And a lot of the same water that many would fish, you know, like a crankbait through, and you know, something that maybe is a little faster moving and they wouldn't get wedged as often, or maybe a suspending jerkbait that's up off of the bottom and stuff like that. Well, I wanted to do that with plastic. And so a lot of the experimentation came from simply frustration. Salt content, whether or not something has a flat bottoms, whether or not something has appendages, all of this stuff, no salt involved, your super plastics, all this stuff comes into play with fall rate, and its rate of descension into the water is a massive trigger. The longer that you can keep a bait in their eyesight and not necessarily make them go down to the bottom and peck around and try to find it, it's phenomenal. It really is. And I wouldn't trade anything that I've done over the last couple decades with the fall rate thing for anything. It was huge. When I take my wife fishing and we're fishing, you know, an 8 foot of water and we're fishing over deep timber and stuff like this, and we're trying to trigger those fish. Well, I don't want her getting frustrated. I don't want her getting snagged, but I still want her presenting a bait that they'll always eat. The common prescription isn't always a 5-inch Senko.
That's
you know, and once you get in tune with being, and someday maybe I'll master it. And I probably never will, but it's a worthy pursuit of, once you get as close as you can for your liking to mastery with being able to count down lead and plastic, or plastic on its own, depending on salt content, if any, in rivers, it's going to greatly increase your odds. And I can assure you, everything that I ever did with Ned rigs was solely because I knew that they would eat them, but I did subtraction. The common Ned rig theme at that time was a gopher mushroom head and a 16th ounce, and you know, with a cut Zankers of 2, which is loaded with salt. And well, I found that too heavy on my water, so I started leaching the salt out of that by putting them in lukewarm water for a week, so they would float. And then I would do subtraction on the lead. And all of that stuff equaled success. I was giving fish a longer look on the drop. And unlike what a lot of people think, the Ned rig thing for me was never a downside shaky head. It was very rare for me to dead stick Ned rigs. My whole game on Ned rigs was getting the salt and lead content to where I could suspend those inches off bottom without fear of getting hung. And I was not dead sticking them for, minutes at a time. It was presenting something in their zone, inches off bottom, even in whether it be a foot of water or 10 foot of water, with various salt content, various amounts of lead. And I still do that. I'm still addicted to that game.
That's it. Very interesting.
But to circle back, Adam, on your question regarding presentations with wintering hole fish, they're either feeding up or they're feeding down. It's one or the other. A lot of fish, it's not both. And I've seen this in clear water. I've watched this ad nauseum on the water. You're going to have fish that are more susceptible to something that is literally not moving for a minute at a time or more. As long as you can stand it, they will eventually circle back around and move ever so gently and pick off something on the bottom. You've got other ones where they will very readily eat something that is slightly above their head. Very, very similar to, you don't hear too many crappie anglers dragging crawdads. Okay. Stuff's up in the column.
Yeah.
In their wheelhouse, in their sight line. Smallmouth are very similar to that. You've got some that are more willing to eat off bottom, others that are not. I'm of big belief that if I don't have to be on the bottom, I'm not on the bottom. I just feel that baits are more readily taken if they are up off the bottom within their eyesight in their zone. So circling back on the winter deal, I can one presentation that I do not go home. I don't leave home without a drop shot. I think the drop shot is one of the most deadly wintering presentations there is. For whatever reason, river smallmouth fishermen, I very rarely hear that mentioned.
Yeah.
It is deadly. It is absolutely deadly in the cold water period. I've never understood why there's not more, and I hate this term, influencers. Because I'm not in the GoPro world and I never will be, but that don't talk about that for river smallmouth. Drop shot is killer.
Yeah.
When you've got location down, it's hard to beat it. If I've got to have something on the bottom, I've got two presentations. One gets there a little quicker than the other. They're both players, and neither one of them are over 2 inches long. One's a skirted jig. And again, I'm not sponsored by them. I just throw this stuff. I buy it like everybody else. A Kayak mono spin jig, and which is a JDM finesse jig. A lot of people will say, well, that's a yellow perch jig. Well, I've taken behemoths in the cold water period on that thing. It's deadly. That's got a really slow fall. I fish a 16th, but it's tungsten. And that's got a really slow fall. If I want to get there a little bit quicker, it's a 2-inch that K-Tex 2-inch spider. It's a little tiny spider grub. It's 2 inches long. and that gets down to the bottom quicker, and I'll dead stick that thing. And as you can probably guess, it's really, really scented. Those are the two bottom deals in the cold water period for me. Some days they eat both. Other days, I mean, they show a preference for one over the other. The mono spin jig will get picked off before it ever hits bottom if you're in the right spot. That little spider grub, that's a dead stick deal, and it's nasty. I mean, it's friggin' 2 inches. I mean, it's an easy meal. If you got location down, it's an easy meal. So those two right there and the drop shot are essential for me. And I love that stuff. I mean, I just feel I catch more fish on that stuff than anything else I've used, honestly. And I buy all my baits. So I hit the sales like anybody else.
I'm sure you must have you probably have enough tackle to, work out the months. You probably have boxes that are just like, for each month of the year, I feel like, and then you have your plastics for that are, I would like to say, in the manufacturing process of, the Myers trademark, as I'd like to say.
I will put something out there. And I haven't heard anyone talk about this, but I will tell you it's a deal. Early fall, right before they winter, and they're just thinking about it. It's before the time change, leading up. October, before that first week in November with the time change. That time change tells me it's winter time go, because that's also the time that I use another natural cue. I know that our big bucks are on the rut. That's when they start chasing the does. That's what I use. That and the diminished daylight, the photo period. Right before that winter period. And I've not heard somebody talk about this, but we have a crawdad spawn that is pretty prolific, and I know for a fact that it happens on more than just my river. When you've still got water temps in that 53 to 56, and those fish really get on the crawdad deal, here's the part that I haven't heard somebody talk about. And I've been fishing it for 2 years. It took me to get this thing down. But it is a deal. We've all heard of shaking a minnow. Unless somebody's got their head under a rock somewhere, we've all heard. The whole industry is enamored with shaking a minnow.
Mm-hmm.
Shake a craw. If anyone has waded a river and you see a crawdad kick out and it's trying to get back down as fast as it can before that thing gets
gobbled up,
before it gets picked off, especially those juvenile ones where even panfish eat them. I mean, everything eats them.
Like I said,
shake a craw.
Shake a craw, eh? I like that. Do you have a craw of choice?
Crazy Flapper 2.8 inch K-Tech. On that owner. Everybody that shakes a minnow knows what the owner is.
Mm-hmm.
The range roller. It's a 132nd and a 196 owner, range roller, and that K-Tech craw. Shake that thing
get it going, and something's gonna happen.
That thing is just like that right off the bottom. And it's nasty. You pause that cadence, and that thing will glide down. And as soon as you pick the cadence back up, it's rocking back and forth like that, just inches off bottom. And it's nasty.
I just want to go back for one thing though. When you were talking about like the turnovers beginning, like, for instance, diminished daylight, we're going into that part where the time goes back, but the bucks are in a rut,
Yep.
and the crawdads are now spawning
right about 2 weeks before that. It's prolific. It is.
That's like the smorgasbord time to eat. Like, it's time to just go and hit the all you can eat buffet at this point. Like,
it's just about 2 weeks before that time change. So I'd say that the second leading into the third and fourth week of October.
Wow.
They are on craws, and it's not just one river. It's a lot of them in my area. You've got some of the biggest craws of the year that are spawning before they go into mud and burrow.
Yeah, because at this time when you spawn, you want to be the biggest. You're kind of like if you think of it as the healthiest you can get.
Yeah.
And if you look at it just like the rut, like the biggest buck wants to go and mate. Well, the same idea with the craw right now. Like, you're gonna have the biggest craws, which now have just opened a hole for going back to what we were talking about. The biggest predators need to eat because they know that it's coming.
Yep.
So it's just like the owl. The owl needs to eat. Well, if the owl sees the little mouse and then the owl sees the big mouse.
Yeah. And Adam, and I know that you've done a lot of wading, and you and I've talked about that portion and how much we enjoy fishing like that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen while you're wading, literally a saucer-sized, it looks like remnants from a seafood buffet in Vegas, where it looks like crawdad remnants that are all bright red or bright orange on the bottom in one area? It almost looks like somebody sat there and ate king crab leg and fruit. And it's about this big. And that's what's going on.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. That I never see. And like I said, this is why I wanted to get you on the show for this, because this is what I'm talking about. Like, and like anybody who's listening, watching, whatnot, like, just think of your own. Like, it's sometimes I think we're so focused on the idea that, the smallmouth, that, it was a couple of years ago. Like I said, I kind of went back and I started to actually revisit what are the smallmouth following, similar to what we keep saying, the owl and the mouse. And you start to see things a little more differently, especially when you're out there. And that's something that I noticed big is, understanding why certain things were working that day. And it didn't always happen right. Like, sometimes I'd be, heading back up the river and I was like, well, this totally makes sense why this is working, because look what's hopping around on the shoreline. Oh, why this? Oh, that's, I just noticed that there's a large amount of, other critters going around. Bait fish, stuff like that. And then there'd be times I'd be driving home and be like, it just dawned on me, like, oh my gosh, like, this is why this. And I get home and I put it in the log.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's, I think just taking that extra time, sometimes it'll make you, and like I never would have thought that. Like, to be honest with you, I never would even thought of seeing it in an actual, let's say, platter of, of crawdad. Yeah,
Carcass. Yeah.
it's that's incredible. Absolutely wild to think that, and yeah, it's now if we were to touch on the idea too, um, just going back on one though, um,
Sure.
when you're looking like, no, like just as a drop shot, um, I don't know if maybe people are unsure of the drop shot. Like, if you were to fish, deeper water, such as, the St. Lawrence River, the drop shot is going to be about just about every bass boat or boat going out there, not just for bass, but for, guys
Right.
throwing for walleye, perch. Um, a
Right.
drop shot presentation, um, one that I actually really liked, on the river when I throw it, is the Nico tadpole.
I talked about that with Travis Manson the first time I was on with him.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's an awesome bait.
and
It
the
really is.
and what I liked about that bait in particular, it's just so small and finesse. Like,
Right.
it's literally like it's round with this tiny little
Yeah.
appendage that comes off, and then a tail.
Yeah, that
And
tail, it doesn't take much to activate that tail. And I
no,
can tell you, you don't even have to shake your rod for that,
no, it
which I think is important with a river drop shot bait. Um, I don't want something that I have to impart action in. In fact, I shouldn't have to.
like that tail just moves so naturally, or
Yeah.
and for me that was always when you said the drop shot to me. Yeah, I've used different, but when you actually think about like an actual like drop shot bait, a lot of people would probably think like, oh well, I'm gonna go right to the flatworm. That is usually a pretty popular one. um Another one you would think of is, oh boy, the mega bass, spark shad, and also the hogs, um, Hazan, I think it is the smaller paddle tail that they have, is another one. And for me, the Nico tadpole was definitely the one that would be my favorite. Oh, I think Travis is just stepped out for 2 seconds. He'll be back. But yeah, no, Nico Bates, the tadpole, check it out. It's definitely worth trying on a drop shot. At first I thought maybe it would work well on a finesse jig. That's another one that I threw it on. But the drop shot, it's interesting, even in its appendages and the way that it's it's just round, but that slight tail action is exactly what it needs. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you were to take anything from this podcast, Travis is definitely a professor of anyone who's interested in river smallmouth fishing, whether you've been doing it for a long time or you're something you're looking to get into. You got a river system in your area you want to check out, you think you might be. Um, I would definitely go out and look into the Midwest Finesse In-Fisherman Midwest Finesse log that Travis and many others, editors and writers for In-Fisherman magazine, have put out. Because I will be honest with you, if you're gonna really tackle the idea of going out and doing some river smallmouth fishing, these guys have written a log, and these logs are really interesting because they're all based on the month and the time of year, whatnot. It's not a, I don't want to say it's a cheat sheet, but it's the idea that you can go read it, and who knows, there might be something that you're doing on your own river system. There might be something that you've been trying or you're not really understanding. You look and you might start to see some similarities. And I'm not saying that all of these are different, that all of them are the same, but you might actually gain something from it. What I did want to say though is when it comes to river smallmouth fishing in the wintertime, this has always been something that for me was like I've always wanted to tackle it. But given my season up here, we are not. It closes, and the rivers. I think it would be neat to actually go out there, and go out there and actually experience this idea too, because as you evolve as an angler, and Travis made some really good points here that, if we're really looking at wintertime fishing and then the dog days of summer, I never actually really thought of that, to be honest with you, until he had said it. When he had said that, it really dawned on me. And it dawned on me for many points is that, when you look at the idea of the time, well, really cold, really hot, opposites, but the approach is still the same. And one of the toughest times most anglers might have while they're out on their river systems is, I can definitely relate to that. Like, that is probably a tough time for me, might be for others. Hey, if you're really successful of it, that is awesome. Like, I hope to be able to achieve that someday. But yeah, no. I'm hoping that Travis is definitely gonna get back in here. He will be hopefully coming back in. I'm not 100% sure. He might have a connection issue, but we'll give him a couple of minutes, and then we will be ready to rock and roll. All right, so we are back. All right, Travis. Technical issues on my end, technical issues on Travis's end, but we are here. No, I just want to say when you ended up just have that quick little glitch. I did say, I to all the viewers, everybody's checking this out. I really strongly, if you're going to take anything away from this episode, is that go in there and check out some of the In-Fisherman's Midwest Finesse logs that you have done. Definitely go read that stuff, and the reason I'm saying that is because, one of the biggest things I've taken away from this is, and if you really look at the idea of winter fishing, is you're talking, we're just talking about the opposite of the dog days of summer at this point. And I didn't really think of it that way. I was more focused on wintertime fishing, and really it's just the opposite temperature. Right. It sounds the approach is, if not the same, maybe the water levels might be in a different realm, but when you really look at it, it's the opposite temperature time of the year. But the presentation approach to what the fish are doing at this point, both most likely in a more lethargic approach state, with a more lethargic approach to catching them, is what I think is what I've taken away on some of that. And that's why I suggested, definitely go and check out, some of the In-Fisherman Guide, Midwest Finesse logs that you have put out. But going back, that drop shot with the Nico Bates tadpole, that was something, like I said, I was like, that once again became one of my favorites for when I use a drop shot on the river. To this day, and it's some pretty impressive plastics at the same time, because you can't seem to really rip them all. I have had a couple tails, but other than that, for the most part, they're pretty handy. And I do like to use them also on small finesse jigs, or even on a small Nico, Ned rig, not a Nico, Ned rig.
Yeah, and that drop shot for me really plays. And a lot of people will think that, well, you got to be in deep water, you got to be fishing vertical, and doing this deal. And the drop shot for me really plays, and I touched on my two bottom deals. With that little spider and that mono jig. Drop shot for me is like 3 or 4 foot water, and like right now, this time of year, it's like 3 foot or less. And on those warming trend days, and I mean, I'm putting a bait fish on that drop shot. They're not going to resist that. They're just not. That thing gets intercepted right in their face. And of course, it's heavily scented, and the colors are amazing. On Shad Impact by Kayak is incredible on a drop shot. It's got a lot of the same tail action that you're talking about, Adam, where you don't even have to move that thing.
Yeah.
And you touched on the summer thing. The exact same baits that I'm talking about right now in the winter period, I fish in the summer during the dog days of summer, just in different locations. The only variance will be I always have a rod with me in the summer that only has a hook on it, where I will rig something weightless. That same drop shot minnow that I just talked about, I'll nose hook that in the summer and fish it in a foot of water when it's 100 degrees out, because they're eating the same thing, and it's just different location. That shaking the craw deal.
Yes, shaking the craw. I like this.
It's nasty. It is. It's nasty. And I will go this far to say this. I've had a couple of epiphanies in my fishing career over all these years, that when I saw something and I was like, wow. And the last one that I can honestly say that did that to me was a Z-Man Zinkers in the dirt color on a 32nd ounce head. The first time I ever saw that in the water, I was like, holy mackerel. When I was shaking the slack on that, and that thing was doing this on a 32nd ounce gopher. Well, time goes on, and everyone, like I touched on, everyone's talking about shaking a minnow and everything. But if you can count a jig down and you put that thing 6, 8, 10 inches off of the bottom, shaking that craw, it's the closest thing that I've seen that's impressed me in the last 15 years.
Wow.
Since originally falling onto the original Zinkers on those small gophers. It's a thing. If people try it, you'll get it. The only thing that you have to do is be cognizant of how deep you are. You don't want to be right on bottom. You want to be just above it.
Just above.
And you want to go with the lightest amount of lead that you can get away with. And I love those owner range roller heads for doing it. They come in a 196 and a 132nd with a number 2. Predominantly, a lot of my lead anymore is tungsten. My weighting system is tungsten. In extremely shallow water, I'll take that same craw and I'll put a drop shot hook into it, and I'll put tungsten, about just a sliver of tungsten in that thing, and I can fish that in anywhere from 8 inches to 3 foot of water in the summer, and it's just brutal. But that shaking the craw deal, I think you might hear something about that coming up.
This is honestly news to me. Hearing about this shaking the craw deal, like shaking the minnow.
Thing literally is
like that's really.
It's
gonna have
it's brutal.
Yeah, gonna have to.
It's nasty.
Just like many other anglers, they all probably have little fish aquariums in their basement or fish bowls or even a cup of water, whatever. I could just imagine how that looked the first time. That was probably like, the mad scientist going on right now. Like everything's just lightening up, like Frankenstein's about to be lit. No,
to
Travis.
do that, I actually, Adam, I take that crazy flapper is actually very active. It's got a lot of action to it. I will say this: I amputate the claws off of that bait.
Interesting.
So yeah. I mean, it looks more susceptible. Much like for a really long time, people were wondering, what the heck does a TRD look like? Well, there's not a lot of appendages there.
I was just gonna, I could. There you go.
And that bait that I've been shaking that craw deal with, that thing looks just like a crawdad. It lost its legs. I mean, it's very easily eaten, very easily. I mean, it's hard to. There's not a lot of negative cues there because there's not a lot of appendages and whatnot. And it rocks back and forth. I mean, it's nasty. It's a nasty little deal.
It definitely.
And again, I buy them like anybody else, and I just got like 15 packs of them. I bought them like anybody else.
Well, it's
a cool deal. If somebody can shake a minnow and they're shaking that slack and make it rock, try it with that bait.
Rock and craw,
rock and craw.
Rock and craw.
It's cool. It's cool. Everything eats it.
And I'm like I said, it's one of those, bait discoveries where I'm sure, probably sat around for a while and then all of a sudden it just dawned on you that, this is what's going on right now. Awareness.
Yeah, really. I wanted, and it just came from watching crawdads in the river. I wanted one that looked frightened, that was trying to find the next crevice to get into. And I wanted one that looked susceptible without a lot of negative cues to it, that had that rocking motion. And it's a cool deal. I mean,
I think that will be cool. Added to the arsenal. Travis, I did want to say, as we come to the end of this podcast, though, I want to thank you very much for coming on and talking. I hope for season 3, you come back on because you are welcome on the River Run podcast anytime you want to come on and chat. River Smallmouth, you are near and dear, my friend, and I appreciate all that you do and all the knowledge nuggets, as I call them. And I hope each and every one of you who've listened to this podcast, you go and check out articles that Travis has taken the time to write. Travis is also, a member of many different teams representing many different brands. So he is notable too as a longstanding Jackson Kayak fishing team member. Does a lot on the side for Jackson through the river fishing knowledge. You can also check out a lot of his other podcasts. That being said, too, with the fellow smallmouth guy, Mr. Travis Manson, also does the Jackson Kayaks Dock Talk. And Travis, where else can people find you if they're wanting to link up with you if they had questions?
They can get me on Facebook. I am on there, and I will say that I'm only on Facebook solely to satisfy some sponsors that I do have that I've been with for over a decade now, close to 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason I'm on Facebook. If I didn't have sponsorship obligations, I wouldn't be on Facebook. I can tell you. That's just me.
Yeah. Fair enough. No, Travis, like I said, I thank you very much for stopping on by the River Run podcast. And from Travis, my guest, I'm Adam Pross. I'm your host of the River Run podcast. And as we close out the second season of this podcast, this has been awesome. I just want to say thank you to each and every one of my guests who want to stop by. And I will say this, I had to save the best for last. He is Mr. Travis Myers, River Guru. Definitely go check him out. Hit him up if you got questions. He is always gracious to help teach and keep the spirit of the sport going. From myself to everybody else, I wish you a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you. And I look forward to having Travis Myers back on the River Run podcast. We'll see you in the new year.
Thank you for tuning in to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget, for future shows, like, follow, share, and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you check out our individual channels and accounts too. Want to be a guest on one of our shows and talk of adventures, gear, or products? Contact us. Thank you for watching The Noob Show with Matt Gibson, Chasing the Tide with Dustin Nichols, The Rusty Hook with John Rapp, The River Run with Adam Fraser Pross, May Contain Fishing with Daniel Woodcock, Chasing the 20s with Carlisle Esterly and Sean Lavery, Friday Night Bites with Brian Schiller. Thanks for tuning into the Paddle and Fin Network. Subscribe and always wear your PFD.